was that these are acceptable expenditures. Come on.
Of blue. No, I wore this down to the governor's mansion today. And Casey Johnson had the same exact thing.
Oh, really? Casey's a good guy. I wanted to go to see him in a while and tell him that this is it. That's right. Here you go, sir. Thank you. Hey, Jim. More than likely.
I would be in big trouble if I did that.
Right. We can do that. His name.
Hotel Motel.
Yes. I'm going to probably do a voice and then to see if we can put those things on the top.
All right, having the appointed time of 5:30 arrived, I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, April 24th, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mr. Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Will do. Alderman Redpath.
Here.
Alderman Senor. Alderman Turner.
Here.
Alderman Fulgenzi.
Here.
Alderman Proctor.
Here.
Alderman DeCenso.
Present.
Alderman McMiniman.
Here.
Alderman Tylen.
Here.
Alderman Donlin.
Here.
Alderman Hanauer.
Here.
Mr. Chair, a quorum is present.
All right, first I'd like to accept a motion for approval of the April 10th, 2018 committee meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, there we go, approved. Next, there's no treasurer's report, correct? And there's no OBM contract report, I believe. So we move on to presentations. I believe we have one from the Springfield Police Department, right, regarding the homeless outreach team. So if that presentation would like to make the road forward, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sergeant Cashels, the floor is yours.
You don't know how scary of a proposition that might turn out to be. I appreciate this opportunity, and I know it's only 5 minutes. There's no way to do justice to this in a 5-minute span. So at the very end of it, I got, and I don't know, I've sent each and every one of the aldermen a letter and then an attached flyer. I'd really appreciate it if you'd attend that. To get a history without going into too much detail, which I know the mayor's eyeballing me here because he's heard this before as well, but over the course of my career, it's been obvious that there are a lot of underlying issues that drive a lot of the calls for service that we deal with. As a result of that, a couple years ago, I teamed up with Dr. Tracy Smith, who's in the back, and we began a focus group. From that focus group, we ended up with like 30 different entities attending on a monthly basis. From that, we went out to the city of Wichita and visited the police department out there where they have this homeless outreach team in there. So, and if there's any questions, can you wait till the end so I can get through this and not get cut off? And then there's probably no. From you, I would expect that, sir. Homeless outreach team, the brief, what is a homeless outreach team? It's a proactive outreach team dedicated to the homeless, acting as a liaison between the homeless and local service providers, a doorway to a wraparound systematic approach to address the underlying issues of our homeless population. Remember that homelessness is a symptom of something else going on. If we're not addressing what's going on there, we're not addressing the problem. The goals are housing. It's transitional to long-term, understanding that some are going to need constant maintenance, constant help. Others can get that temporary transition to ultimately permanent transition. The mental and medical health care, education that's for the public and for department personnel and service providers here. That Find Your Way Home program, this is something that they use out in Wichita. They have an agreement with the Greyhound out there wherein they transport the homeless after they vet them. This isn't a matter of getting a homeless person on a bus and making it someone else's problem. They treat the underlying issues, get them stable, and then send them. Yes, sir. Oh, darn it, I feel like an idiot now. And then also an implementation of a case management database.
I got you, buddy.
Thank you, brother. This is what the residents and people that come in are seeing. and it's an aesthetic issue. And traditional community responses are to legislate the behavior away. It's unsightly. People become afraid of them. Law enforcement responses state and ordinance violations, arrest, or excess use of manpower. There are 3 types of homeless, without going into a whole lot of detail. Thank you, sir. The situational and the crisis are kind of similar in that there's some major event in their life. One leads to abuse, drug abuse or substance abuse, and then they begin to deteriorate and ultimately end up becoming homeless. Crisis, there's something where they lose a job, and from that they end up literally being thrown out on the street. And chronic, and there is a definition of chronic, which is unaccompanied individual who has been homeless for a period of 1 year or more, or has experienced 4 or more episodes of homelessness over a 3-year period, and has some sort of disabling condition, mental and or emotional disorder, substance abuse, etc. There has been challenges of law enforcement practices all over the United States. And then next is the current statistics of homeless in our community, which I kind of contradict myself because that's 2015 and 2016. 2017 just came out. The numbers are similar, but they have increased. And under the 2016, 2 things I want to bring your attention to. One, where it says there are identified 55 mentally ill. When you include mentally ill and mental disorders, I think the number is a lot bigger than that. It's just that these are probably ones who have been diagnosed and or treated for it. And then in the very bottom there, under 2016, there's 101 one night at Helping Hands. Of them, 56 of them are from other than Springfield. So that Find Your Way Home program, if there's a way to get them stable and back home, would help tremendously. Solutions: educate the public, police, and service providers so that we're all working on the same page and working together. The active outreach, which is a proactive, collaborative approach. The reuniting with the family, and of course, structuring the service providers towards a systematic approach to dealing with it. The economic impacts on a city. This 54,000 a year is a number that's nationally recognized. The only one who differs recently was San Diego, and they said it's 56,000 a year. That includes total financial loss with all of those entities that were listed there. That includes police, emergency rooms, the county, et cetera, et cetera. And these are some success stories that we have with the help of Dr. Smith and some of her personnel, and I'll go through these as fast as I can. Cody F. came here from Lincoln, Nebraska because there was a job waiting for him. There was no job when he got here. He started hanging out at the library, started smoking K2. Cody was here for 11 days. In that 11-day period, he was arrested 4 times. And he, at the very last arrest, thought the Mexican mafia was chasing him. We made contact with a sister in Lincoln, Nebraska. The sister said he had a traumatic brain injury previously. They'd been wondering where he went. From that, we did what they refer to as a detention and evaluation. It's a court order. We go over, so in essence, it's like a warrant. We get him into a treatment facility. After 10 days, he was stable enough. We put him on a bus and got him home. We didn't want to put him on a bus initially, obviously, because he could go 4 blocks and get out. We've had contact with his sister several times. He's doing very well. He's living in a independent facility and has a job. Richard L., similar story, except there was some girl he was madly in love with. He met on the internet, got here, guess what? No such thing. Very similar circumstances with the K2, and again, we got him stable. Ithaca, New York is where he was from. We contacted his dad. Dad had been worried and heartbroken, had no idea where he was at. We ended up getting a ticket. Now, the ticket on Richard, the monies were paid by SIU. With Cody, we had a local realtor group who donated the money for it. And then Roy B. is a longtime gentleman downtown. There were around 100 visits to the emergency room in 2016. And I guarantee law enforcement was involved in probably 99.9% of those. There is a system similar to what we want to do citywide, a portion of that system in the Enos Park area. And since he, with that, rather the SIU program, the collaborative care program, they got him a apartment up there, got treatment for him. We've had 8 calls for service since beginning of 2017 with him, and that's it. Most of those were just contacts. And then lastly, Antoine D. He was a very big gentleman, frightened a lot of people, would wander in downtown, and then he'd be out south. We had as many as 12 calls a day on him at times. He had 12 arrests from March 16th of last year to August 3rd. We did another D&E on him, got him into care. He is currently still in treatment. We've had 0 calls on him since the end of August. And then this was a female from right here in town where we applied some of this. And you can see the calls for service on her. She's bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and paranoia. Most of these began when a longtime boyfriend had committed suicide, and that's when all this started. And looking at it, you can see the number of calls from September through December and an increase of that activity every month. On December 19th, this is when we began that outreach part of the program. And then you can see where the calls have dropped. And then, oops, sorry about that. The very bottom of that, we've had 0 calls on her at all since March of 2017. The costs that are up there are SPD cost only. That's what it costs for patrolmen, figuring you're sending 2 officers, which is normal when we deal with a mentally ill individual. And you can see where before, during that 9 months, that's $1,782 in the average cost. For the 3 months where we were actually taking some of the individuals from SIU right to the house in the outreach aspects of it, it's $193. And then again, we've had no cost for service with her at all since March 2017. And that's pretty much all I have, unless you want to put that conference. The training that we had was done out in Wichita. That gentleman, Nathan Schweithal, is the officer out there who had that program up and going in there for the past 4 years. I think it took him about 6 years to get it implemented there, and it's based on a program that came out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, and it's where it's been applied, it's been successful in every city. He's also coming to town for a conference for 3 hours. If anybody's interested, you're more than welcome. I'd appreciate it if you come. You can hear it firsthand from an expert. That's all I have, and I appreciate your time. Questions? Cool. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Sergeant. Appreciate it. All right. Next, we have ordinances tabled to remain committee. Mr. Clerk, would you please read those ordinances?
2017-103, 2017-266, 2017-435, 2017-436, 2017-470, 2017-489, 2017-533, 2018-005, 2018-110, 2018-141,
Anybody would like to remove any of those ordinances from committee for consideration? Alderwoman DeCenzo.
I'd like to keep 489 in committee.
489 in committee. Okay, I don't think we're going to pull it or withdraw. You want to bring it out?
No, I don't want to bring it out. I just, it's supposed to, it's
6 months.
It's a 6 months
Okay.
today.
All right. Did we want to go through that list and cleanse it out? That was your request, Alderman Tylen, or just?
I think we did that last week.
We do that?
We did it last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we good?
Mr. Zirkle provided a list, and that's how we removed those other 3.
Okay. All right, so we'll keep it in committee. Cool.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Mr. Clerk, ordinances for CWLP.
2018-179, an ordinance accepting bids and authorizing contract UE 18-01-73, rental of heavy equipment with J-Mark Equipment Incorporated, DBA Bobcat of Springfield, Cummings, McGowan, and West Incorporated, Herc Rentals Incorporated, Machine Maintenance Incorporated, doing business as Luby Equipment Services, Martin Equipment of Illinois Incorporated, Roland Machinery Company, and Vermeer Sales and Service of Central Illinois Incorporated, in an amount not to exceed $198,000 for the Office of Public Utilities.
Consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
2018-180, an ordinance accepting bids and authorizing the execution of contract UE 18-01-75 general maintenance and repair at the generating facility with Henson Robinson Company from April 17, 2018 to February 28, 2021 in an amount not to exceed $2,400,000 for the Office of Public Utilities.
Consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Let's go next one.
2018-181, an ordinance accepting bids and authorizing contract UE 18-02-94 to Digger Derrick Trucks with Truck Centers Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $390,432 for the Office of Public
Move
Utilities.
for consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
2018-182, an ordinance authorizing additional funding in an amount not to exceed $19,169.29 for the one-month trial for the mercury oxidation capture and removal of Dahlman Plants Units 31 and Units 32 with Redox Technologies Group, LLC, DBA, Redox Solutions for a total amount not to exceed $98,676.89 for the Office of Public Utilities.
Consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
2018-183, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Toshiba America Energy Systems Corporation for turbine valve cartridge overhaul of Unit 4 in the amount not to exceed $50,750 for the Office of Public
Move
Utilities.
for consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
2018-184, an ordinance authorizing payment of bank service fees in an amount not to exceed $70,000 to the Illinois National Bank for banking services through July 31st, 2019 for the Office of Public Utilities.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make an amendment to this to reduce the cost after talking to CWLP from $70,000 to $55,000. No more, not to exceed $55,000.
Second.
All right, so we have an amendment on this to lower it from $70,000 to $55,000, right?
That's correct.
All right, all in favor of the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion, amendment's adopted. So now on the ordinance.
Move for consent.
Any discussion on the ordinance itself? Alderman McMiniman.
Has the utility reached out to Illinois National Bank regarding the amendment?
They're working with, first of all, they haven't spent over $35,000, I think, a year on this, so felt like 70 was a little bit more, but the treasurer is reaching out to Illinois National Bank concerning this account and trying to work out where our service fees will be much less than the $55,000. So,
if I might comment.
yes, I'm sorry, Ken.
Alderman, with all due respect, we have spent in the very low 40s. But the issue of the discussion was that this is a not to exceed amount, and we ran a spreadsheet to show how much we had spent each year for the last 3 years. And at 40, it was 41 and a lot of change. And a couple of years were in the upper 30s. So we, of course, would agree to reduce that amount to 55, because that gives us an amount that we think we will spend plus some cushion over it just in case something out of the ordinary occurs.
So, Chair, are we changing the schedule of fees or just changing the cap?
We're just changing the not to exceed amount for the budget, for the spending authority here at City Council.
So all the rate of fees remain as they have always been, or has
the rate of fees currently remain as they have been. However, part of the discussion went to the issue of the treasurer has been involved and has been involved in other accounts that we have, and the treasurer has agreed, and we have agreed with the treasurer to have her look into reducing the schedule of fees, but that has yet to be reported on. It's yet to be, for this account, initiated, but it will be, which was part of the product of the meeting today.
So with this ordinance, are we changing the rate of fees, or is there a scheduled rate of fees associated with this ordinance?
There is no change in the existing rate of fees associated with this ordinance.
Okay, so it sounds like we're not reducing any cost then, we're just reducing the ceiling on potential cost
This
with the current rate of fees.
today will reduce the ceiling for annual or for term of the contract, which is 15-month spending. If, in fact, we would go over the $55,000 because of whatever the into and out of the accounts were, then we'd have to come back to the council to ask for additional authority for this account.
Thanks for that explanation.
Thank you. Anything else?
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the ordinance as amended?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-185, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a proposal with Ibiden Ceram Environmental Incorporated for a 5-year term in the amount not to exceed $671,000 for selective catalytic reduction (SCR) system catalyst management services for the City of Springfield for the Electric Division for the Office of Public Utilities.
Move for consent.
Second.
See any discussion?
Yes.
Alderman Redpath.
Is there is this the 671 for the whole 5 years?
Yes.
That's all I want to know. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-186, an ordinance amending Chapter 50, Section 50.30 of the 1988 City of Springfield Code of Ordinances as amended regarding electric utility rate schedules in renumbering subsections in 50.30M and 50.30N for the Office of Public Utilities.
Move to consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-205, an ordinance authorizing execution of a water agreement with Lincoln Land Energy Center, LLC.
Move for consent.
Second.
Discussion.
Any discussion? Alderman Redpath.
Could you explain this, please?
So this is the Emberclear plant, natural gas plant that's located in Pawnee, or will be in Pawnee. So basically, when we did the enterprise zone, however long ago, you know, their actual name is Lincoln Land Energy. So we're trying to enter into a water agreement with them, just like we did with the agreement with the enterprise zone. And so anytime you design a plant, their water usage might vary from the initial phase of what they thought they would be at. So they're actually thinking they're going to use less than what they originally planned for. So they kind of wanted to change how they wanted to do it, which is okay with us. So that's why we agreed to a higher monthly fee for the meter charge for basically the first 80,000 gallons. We wanted to capture our revenue, which was what we originally agreed to when the city council actually approved of the enterprise zone.
So there's some rumblings going around that there's some problems with this agreement. Is that you guys worked everything out? Is everything on the straight and narrow on this? We don't have to worry about this?
Yes, I mean, as you know, when we had a phone call with them, this is the number we gave them, and they agreed to that.
They agreed to it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman McMiniman.
Chair, Doug, what's the distance from our water plant to Pawnee? Roughly in miles?
I don't know. I mean, I've never even looked at that. The water main would actually be extending it from near Ball Chatham School area. So it's on the south side of town. We already have a water main down that way. Basically, we'd run the water main from there and run it down probably the Pawnee Blacktop. Just, you know.
And roughly what's the distance between that school there that you mentioned and Pawnee?
Hey, Ted, you know? About 3.5 miles. And they're required to pay for the water main.
So the distance, the total distance to deliver the water is roughly 25 miles? Is that a rough estimate? 20? Okay, let's leave
we can
that
get back
question.
to you on that.
Okay.
Ted,
do we have any
up?
bulk users of that
Director
distance
Meckes?
currently?
I'm sorry, what was your
Do
question?
we have any bulk users of water that distance away from our water plant,
Probably Williamsville.
Williamsville?
They would require a pumping station, but that's, again, their cost to build. We would build it, but they have to pay us for it.
Let's take a worst-case scenario. The earthquake from southern Illinois takes off, and we have a main break. Are we liable for failure to deliver water to the power plant?
No, I mean, so basically, if there's an act of God, then we can get out of that. And then I believe, we haven't seen this, but we've been told that they would have also a backup water supply source as well.
Appreciate Council Zirkle.
Yeah, I was simply going to say, you may remember that the essential terms were covered in that first vote regarding the Amber Clare Enterprise Zone, and it laid out kind of the framework, for the water service and so on. But one of the things they asked for that the city agreed to was to basically be able to have a backup water supply because of the very concern that Alderman McMenamin is raising if what for some reason the city couldn't, and they will end up with I've been told, I have not seen it, but I was told that they will end up with a backup water supply with Pawnee through that water district there. Correct. So they've thought of that, if you will, that alternative if there's a problem.
Okay, the concern is, entangling ourselves with another business and any potential liability you can see out there of any kind in our obligation to deliver this potential quantity of water. It looks like the maximum that we'd be obligated to deliver is 300,000 gallons per day, and anything above that we would not be obligated to deliver, but we could if we wanted to or had the means to. Is that the way you read the contract?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
May I say, one of the changes that did happen through this process, the amounts in the original discussion were actually quite a bit higher. And what we've been advised is that they're using different equipment that does not require as much water. So one of the things you'll see in this agreement versus the original is the volume of water has been pretty substantially reduced.
Correct.
And that has to do with, I think, air cooling versus water cooling?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Alderman Senor?
If this is the agreement with Emberclear, how come they're not mentioned in here tying the two together?
Well, the Emberclear, as I understand it, is defined legally as Lincoln Land Energy Center.
Okay, but I'd like to see it mentioned in this.
That's their legal, that's their legal.
It's their legal term, that's the legal name.
Right.
So the question,
I'm sorry, go ahead,
the
please.
question becomes then, if the two are ever separated, are they still one as far as we're concerned?
The original agreement was with Lincoln Land Energy Center. And so what you have is, I think that is their DBA, if their counsel is here, so he could correct me, but that's their DBA, doing business as, or that's their arm. But this Lincoln Land Energy Center LLC is the actual operating entity that will own the land and operate the plant. And that's who the contracts are with, both with the county and with the city.
So my question still becomes, we've been dealing all the time with Emberclear, and the name Emberclear has been thrown out, and I understand the legality of the name, that their legal name is Lincoln Land Energy Center LLC, but I just want to make sure the two are tied together for our purposes.
I think we're covered on that legal point of, are we making agreement with the correct entity based on the information that they've provided to us and to the county.
Do you want to come on up? And please state your name and everything.
Sure. Matthew Cate, Barbara Segato, Hoffy Wilkie Cate, on behalf of the entity. Mr. Zirkle has just recited exactly accurate with what is happening, so I don't have anything to add to that other than say he is accurate in his explanation.
Okay. Do you have any follow-up questions? Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-209, an ordinance approving and authorizing a settlement agreement with General Electric International, Incorporated, GE, and National Union Fire Insurance Company of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, National Union, for the Dolman Unit 33 turbine mechanical failure totaling $4,520,751.30, and authorizing a refund payment to National Union in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000 for the Office of Public Utilities.
Move for consent.
All right, any discussion? Alderman Turner.
I just have a question. I know we've been talking about this for a while. Is this the amount that we, have been thinking that we would receive?
Yes, so when we originally, when this event occurred, we entered into an agreement, and it was around $5 million, as it's stated here. And, through that, we found out that, basically GE took responsibility for the fault that occurred, and basically are covering all their costs. And we did have some internal cost of our own for our own labor and some third-party contracts, which basically the insurance company decided to kick in some money to cover that, basically to settle the agreement, so that way, we could avoid lawsuits and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
So we're fully covered.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Public Safety, 2018-187, an ordinance declaring 10 unclaimed bicycles being held in the Springfield Police Department's evidence room to be surplus property and authorizing the Springfield Police Department to donate said bicycles to Contact Ministries and American Legion Post 809 not-for-profit organizations.
Move to consent. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Alderwoman DeCenzo.
I've been contacted by several constituents that this is a problem of people just dumping bikes places. I've seen one that's chained up on Old Jacksonville Road for a couple weeks now. So I don't know if anyone can speak to this, or they're just bikes being left all over the place in alleys and.
Police chief?
Belong to the kid that lived there.
Does it?
You got to take care of this is transit.
This time of year, we do get a lot of bikes that are found property, bikes that have been stolen and dumped later on that sometimes we can't track back because serial numbers, identifying characteristics are not known at the time that they report them. We take those, and those are the bikes that we end up donating. They come to us. We keep them for such amount of time, do our due diligence to try to locate the owner, and if we can't locate an owner, then obviously they go to auction, or not to auction, but to charity.
Okay. And it's my understanding there isn't a lot of room for the Springfield Police Department to store these kinds of items.
No, we do everything in our power to return them because they take up a lot of rooms. But I'll get with you afterwards. If there's one that's changed somewhere, typically that's somebody's bike, so we'll see figure out what's going on.
I think it was resolved from what I just heard.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor for consent?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Public Works, 2018-188, an ordinance accepting the lowest bid and authorizing execution of contract number PW 18-02-83 with WAS Construction Company for the 2019 sidewalk program in an amount not to exceed $1,713,356 for the Office of Public Works.
Move to consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-189, an ordinance accepting RFP PW 18-21 with Clean Harbors Incorporated and Heritage Environmental Services for the 2018 spring and fall household hazardous waste collections for an amount not to exceed $160,000 for the Office of Public Works.
Move to consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-190, an ordinance accepting the low bid and authorizing the execution of contract number PW 19-03-09 with Lincoln Land Concrete Incorporated to purchase ready-mix concrete and related material for an amount not to exceed $400,000 for the Office of Public Works and the Office of Public Utilities.
Move to consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-191, an ordinance accepting the proposal submitted by Knight EA Incorporated for design engineering comprised of plans, specification, and estimates to modernize traffic signals and switch from one-way to two-way streets on 4th, 7th, and East Adams for an amount not to exceed $219,060 for the Office of Public Works.
Move to debate.
Second.
Any discussion? Alderman Hanauer.
Is this, I don't remember seeing this in the budget. Was this budgeted for?
Director Mahoney.
It may have been in Fund 95. I don't.
Exactly, it'd be out of Fund 95, so it comes out of it.
But we did budget, did we have a line for it in there?
I don't recall
I have
the
to
look.
look
It
back.
should have been covered under there. But this is just, they're engineering that we're for the moving forward on the next phase. So the construction will come later. So.
Okay.
Alderman Senior.
Alderman Hanna, we had a presentation on this a couple weeks ago.
I understand that, but I just.
Oh, no, not.
I don't
not the
recall
city.
seeing it in the budget.
No, I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying we had a presentation on this, not here, but at one of our outside meetings.
Yeah.
Ooh, an outside meeting.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, Alderman were there.
An outside meeting about the
We
one-way
were not
streets.
invited.
Would you like to rephrase that?
Could you elaborate, please?
I'm glad you all are concerned, but it was a pro-tech seminar.
A what?
Pro-tech seminar.
Oh, okay.
Were you there?
Did you get a notice
I was not
of that
I
invited.
didn't
meeting?
get invited to that.
I
so.
didn't get a notice of that.
You have to be a techie to be at the seminar.
All righty.
Well, I could say something, I'll just.
Or at least to get invited.
Anyway, Mr. Chairman, let's go.
Yeah, let's move it on. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
2018-192, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Adam Maltek for the purchase of one parcel of real estate located at 2403 South Fifth Street in an amount of $82,000 and relocation expenses and closing costs not to exceed $32,412.60 and for a total amount not to exceed $114,412.60 relating to the Springfield Rail Improvement Project for the Office of Public Works.
Move to consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
2018-193, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Peter Revocable Trust for the purchase of one parcel of real estate located at 241 South Fifth Street in an amount of $6,700 relating to the Springfield Rail Improvement Project for the Office of Public Works.
Move for consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Alderman Senior.
Is that address correct? 241 South Fifth Street?
No. 2441.
Yeah. It's different.
Below there in the text, it says it's
441?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we all good in the ordinance?
Yep.
Okay. Good, all right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
2018-194, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Jin Zheng Chen for the purchase of one parcel of real estate located at 2407 South Fifth Street in an amount of $65,000 in relocation expenses and closing costs not to exceed $2,000 for a total amount not to exceed $67,000 relating to the Springfield Rail Improvement Projects for the Office of Public Works.
Move for consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
2018-195, a supplemental resolution notifying the State of Illinois Department of Transportation that motor fuel tax funds in an amount of $188,112.60 may be used for the land acquisition for Springfield Rail Improvements Project, MFT, section number 18-00478-00-BR for the Office of Public Works.
Move for consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
2018-196, an ordinance authorizing execution of a supplemental agreement with Hanson Professional Services Incorporated for design, engineering, and land acquisition services for the Springfield Rail Improvements Project for the Office of Public Works.
Motion for consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
2018-208, an ordinance accepting the lowest responsible bid and authorizing the execution of contract number PW 19-03-05 with P.H. Broughton & Sons Incorporated for the FY 2019 Seal Coat Overlay Program in an amount not to exceed $517,803 for the Office of Public Works and Public Utilities.
Move for consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Finance, 2018-197, an ordinance authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement with Lumberyard Suppliers Incorporated as LS Building Products for the assistance in redeveloping the property located at 3441 Lumber Lane, utilizing Lumber Lane tax increment financing funds, if available, and sales tax rebate in an amount not to exceed $1,200,000.
Move for
One to
consent.
minute.
I believe there's someone here who wants to speak on this, Troy Reed, is that right?
We need a second.
While we're
Second
waiting,
on-
Mr. Chairman, while
Yep.
we're waiting, can I ask Corporation Counsel a question? There was some concern about something being left out of this. Are we going to have to add something to this ordinance before we come in front of the council?
They had given some suggested language change on the procedural stuff this afternoon, and we're looking at it. I think it's going to be fine, meaning that if you put it on debate, then we can address it. It's not substantive in the sense of the amount of the tax or the project. It's to clarify the process.
In that case, Mr. Chairman, I'll change my motion to read for the debate agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a
And
motion.
we'll circulate it, meaning it'll be very straightforward. It's not.
Obviously, Corporation Counsel and the mayor, you all know how important this project is to Springfield and Alderman Fagenzi and all, but we really like to get this thing moving because they need to get moving and get building.
Okay, so we have a debate motion. Would you like to talk about it? And please state your name and everything.
My name is Troy Reed. I'm the president and one of the owners of LS Building Products. Our corporate headquarters in East Peoria, Illinois. We are a building products distributor and really in central and downstate Illinois. Roughly 7 locations and somewhere in the neighborhood of about 175 employees. Our plans are to take this location. Actually, it's a move. We're operating. We had an acquisition a couple years ago, just over 2 years ago. Bought Truss Slater and Garrettson Lumber out of Verdon, Illinois. That operation in Verdon is not large enough to service this community well enough for us. Our plans are to move that operation that's servicing currently the Springfield and surrounding areas and our Peoria area out of this new location. My understanding has been vacant for going on 4 years now. So we want to redevelop that. That will be one of our larger operations as far as the warehouse goes. It'd be roughly 70,000 square feet. Our next largest location out of this other 7 we have is about 45,000 square feet. There'll be additional employees coming in on board with us. Quite a bit of money would be reinvested in the property to get the site location up to par for us. And then also rework the interior offices, totally remodel that area, and build a showroom. We'll be servicing, as I mentioned in our letter, we do a pretty good job in a 50-mile radius. We're pretty saturated there. We will go outside those areas on a fairly regular basis, but 50-mile radius serving the Springfield area, definitely over to Decatur, Jacksonville, probably Quincy as well. So there'll be quite a bit of coverage. It's typical for any one of our locations.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Reed? Alderman McMiniman.
Mr. Reed, do we have any truss manufacturing in the Springfield area at this time that you're aware of?
I think I am aware, the name of it skips my mind, but yeah, I think there is another locale. Our truss manufacturing, we wouldn't be doing any truss manufacturing here. That location that we have is in Verdon, Illinois. This would be building product distribution.
I see. You're familiar with the truss manufacturing across from Shields? Is that the one you're thinking of?
I think it's called U.S. Truss. I think there is one there, yeah. I think that's the name of it.
Mr. Reed, if I vote no to this, it's because generally I think it's a good policy for the city to establish the TIF district and then do redevelopment agreements after the TIF district is established. In my 7 years on the council, I don't recall of any redevelopment agreements we've done where the TIF district is not yet established. So I just want to explain that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions, discussion? No, seeing none. All in favor for debate? Aye. Right. Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-198, an ordinance providing for and authorizing the issuance of taxable special service area Legacy Point ad valorem tax bonds, Series 2018 of the City of Springfield, Sangamon County, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $16 million for the purpose of refunding the city's special service area Legacy Point to ad valorem tax bonds, Series 2009, and Special Service Area Legacy Point ad valorem tax bonds, Series 2010.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
2018-199, an ordinance authorizing a supplemental appropriation in an amount of $16,000 for an unappropriated fund balance for the Flexible Benefits Plan Fund.
Move to consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Alderman Hanauer.
What's the deal with this? We forgot.
This is the fund that we use to pay for our flex funds benefit administrator. Yeah, WageWorks is, and we didn't put the appropriation in to do it. It's in fund, I think 78. That's all it is.
How's it going to affect the budget?
It's not. The money's in there. It's, again, this is to pay for the administrator of our employee benefit flex. So it's not an effective corporate or anything like that, if that's what you're asking.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-200, an ordinance authorizing execution of a subsidiary agreement number 14-SR-008 with and authorizing payment to Fifth Street Renaissance Sarah Center for a property located at 1520 North 7th Street, utilizing community development block grant funds in an amount not to exceed $546,370 through the Office of Planning and Economic Development.
Motion for consent.
Second.
Any discussion? Clerk, you have me as a co-sponsor on this one?
We will.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-206, an ordinance authorizing settlement in an amount of $980,000 with Comcast of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, LLC, Comcast regarding franchise fee audit.
Motion for consent.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Could you
Alderman
explain,
Redpath.
could you explain what this is, please?
Corporation Counsel Zirkle.
You may recall that the city some years ago had retained an auditing firm by the name of Asavar to basically go back through prior payments and calculations for the franchise fee. They do this not only here, but in other states as well. And they had identified basically underpayments on the part of Comcast over a period of several years. And this represents a settlement of the basically the audit finding with Comcast and consists of both unpaid franchise fees, interest, penalties, and so on.
So where's that money go?
Keep in mind that Asavar gets 1/3 of that because they were hired on a contingency. And this would just go into the general fund or the corporate fund, presumably. I'm looking at. Yes. Okay.
So this will reflect the budget in an increase of about $500,000. Is that correct?
It should be in a range of 600 or 650 net, but it would just go to fund balance.
So it's unappropriated, though?
That is correct.
So any of that money that is being spent has to be approved by the city council, correct?
Yes. Anything that's in, anything that would be in fund balance, unappropriated money would have to be, there'd have to be an appropriation to spend it.
Thank you.
Now, and may I add to this, there will be a follow-on, because you may recall that the discussion with Comcast was that this had to be resolved, but the next step will be with the actual franchise agreement. So that will be a follow-on ordinance once the issues related to that are finalized.
But it doesn't affect that we're still going to get this rebate?
Not at all.
Okay.
First the mayor had actually taken that position with Comcast because of the way it came together. And so the condition was we settle this, and this is paid before we go forward with any of the discussion on the actual franchise renewal.
And that's when is that coming?
I'm probably in the next 60 to 90 days.
That's a big issue for people that call my house and my office.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to ask the same question that Alderman Redpath was asking in a different way. Bill McCarty, when we did our budget approval for this existing budget year, we did not include this revenue in the resources available to the city. Is that correct?
That is correct. This revenue was not anticipated or included.
So our deficit for the current year shrunk by roughly $660,000 with this achievement after how many years? 4 or 5 years, Bill? I remember when we passed the ordinance, Alderman Turner was on the council at that time, and Alderman Tylen. So this is a really good outcome for the city. Thank you.
Alderman Turner.
I just want to echo what Alderman McMenamin said. When this was first proposed several years ago, I don't think anyone anticipated what was going to happen. It was just kind of a poke in the dark. So I think that this is an extremely good outcome for the first results that we're seeing. So are there any other such investments in the works? That there are any other accounts that they're looking at?
Actually, this is the third successful outcome from that agreement. We have already, a couple of years ago, there was a situation where they had looked at businesses that are within our city limits and compared our data to Department of Revenue's data, and we found that there were 6 or 7 businesses that were classified by the Department of Revenue as being outside city limits, so we weren't getting that sales tax. We now are, so that's another successful outcome. And then several years ago, they had discovered in looking at franchise taxes being paid or excise taxes being paid on natural gas by the utility that the utility shouldn't have been paying, that they were exempt from being a municipal entity like they are. And so I believe that outcome is savings of like $1,500 a month or something like that for the utility. So this is actually the third outcome. One of the other things that we're talking about internally right now, and not necessarily as of we're studying, and we've already met with a couple of different entities, is potentially doing a hotel-motel tax audit. We haven't done one since the 1990s, and it's one of those things that we think maybe it's time to take a look at that. So it could be as of they do it, but unfortunately the person that heads that at their organization just left. So I'm waiting on a proposal from them. We've already spoken to another group out of, I think, Texas or somewhere, and we're out there. Given the council's desire to see us go out and talk to multiple firms, that's what we're doing before we bring something before you.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Redpath.
So you said that a second part of this was an influx to the sales tax. How does that affect our sales tax money, considering that we were about $4 million in the hole last year? Is there a difference?
Actually, this finding is a couple of years old, so it's been included. It'd be part of that. We're talking, I think, roughly 6 or 7 businesses now. Most of those businesses were relatively small. Some of them are not even open anymore, but there are a couple that are. So we're getting a little bit of sales tax out of that. Not a lot more, considering that they were smaller and some are closed. But again, right now, given our financial situation, we'll take anything we can get.
All right, thanks.
All right. Any other questions, discussions? Nope. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries for consent, I believe.
2018-207, an ordinance authorizing a sponsorship payment of $30,000 to Springfield Sliders and authorizing a sponsorship payment for an amount not to exceed $10,000 for the Juneteenth event to be held Tuesday, June 19, 2018, pursuant Article Roman numeral VII, Chapter 37, Section 37.62 of the 1988 Springfield Code of Ordinances as amended for the Springfield Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Motion for debate.
Second.
Thank you. And I believe there's an amendment. Probably can't make my own motion as chair. Okay.
There is an amendment that everyone has that would decrease the amounts. The sliders amount would go from $30,000 to $20,000, and the Juneteenth amount would go from $10,000 to $8,000. And the reduction on the Juneteenth, if in your information there was a budget that was submitted that was in the amount of $8,000, so the reduction would mirror the budget that you received.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right. Is there any questions on the amendment? Alderman Senor.
The Juneteenth festival is on the 15th and 16th. It's not on the 19th.
It's on the 15th and 16th.
Yes, Saturday and Sunday.
So
Okay.
I guess we further amend the amendment to change the...
Would that just be considered a friendly amendment, Mr. Circle?
Scrivener's error.
Is it just basically a technical?
Which,
To check
the
date.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, the date,
of the
absolutely,
event.
yeah. If it's, if there's inadvertently just a wrong date or like a misspelling of a word or something, that's,
Could be
we
just
will
a-
certainly correct that.
Yes.
And may I also say just that there may be, and I would defer to Bill on this point, there may be the need for a second amendment regarding possibly a supplemental, is that correct? Just to be technically correct, we're trying to check on that, but I think there was a question about whether or not there was a line item in the budget.
Yes, this sponsorship was not anticipated in the original budget as passed by the council, so we would need to add a supplemental appropriation in order to pay out the funds.
Okay. But that could be an amendment number 2. In other words, that can be addressed as a separate amendment at the council meeting. I just wanted to make sure because I just found out about that.
I have a third amendment I want to make from the floor.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so,
Amendment number 1 is pending, so you address that first.
all right. To vote on the amendment number 1. Aye.
Can you state what the amendment number 1 is, please?
Okay, it lowers the amount for the Springfield Sliders to $20,000 and for the Juneteenth down to $8,000.
We have a motion. Can we get a second on that?
There was a second over
There
here.
was a second.
Senor seconded.
On the amendment
Or
also?
Alderman Senor, yes, thank you.
On the amendment also?
No, Alderman DeCenso actually seconded the motion for
debate.
For debate.
Yes. All right, so vote on the amendment.
Further question on the amendment,
Sure,
Mr. Chair?
go ahead.
What was the contribution amount to the sponsorship amount for the Sliders last year?
Probably, I think it was $15,000, but Bill backed me up.
Okay, thank you.
I'll have to get that for you. I don't have it in front of me.
I believe that is correct. I think, Alderman, you asked me to check, and I believe it was $15,000 last year.
There you go, 15,000. Okay. And you're the one that caught that we had to make to do an ordinance, so thank you for checking that last year. All right. Any other questions on the amendment? Seeing none, can we vote on the amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the amendment's adopted.
Mr. Chairman, since the amendment number 2 is going to come later, I'm going to make my floor amendment now. I'd like to make an amendment that we divide the question and consider these 2 issues separately for the sliders and for the Juneteenth.
Second.
Okay. So vote on dividing the ordinance.
Procedurally, it would be a motion to divide the question. So if there's a majority of the quorum here votes for that, then that divides the question. You'd have a separate vote on each item.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So motion on that. Is there a second? You seconded over there? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none? Okay, so we will divide these ordinances into 2, so you're going to give it a separate number? Yeah. All right.
We can use A and B, maybe 207A and B. I think we've done once before,
Okay.
whatever the clerk would like to do.
I believe we had someone who wants to speak on this before we vote on the final product, or Alderman Hanauer.
On the Juneteenth, the budget that was submitted, is this their budget for this year? 88, estimated 8,800, or was there another budget?
It's the budget that was included with the ordinance in the packet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Alderman Tylen, and then I think we had someone who wants to talk.
And I have a question, and this goes back to the web.com as well. We had talked about wanting to make sure that the Convention and Visitors Bureau money was being spent the way that it's intended to be. We had talked about with when Kate Peters was here with web.com that we wanted to make sure that the money was being spent on authorized expenditures, that it was going for promotion, that it was going for things that would bring people to the city of Springfield. To that effect, I know then I think that may be the speaker's point as well, but they cite, we all received an email and it cites a state law. Did you have a chance to look at that, Mr. Zirkle? Referencing 65 ILCS 58-3-14 as the justification for the imposition of hotel tax, stating the amounts collected by any municipality pursuant to this section shall be expended by the municipality solely to promote tourism and conventions within that municipality or otherwise to attract non-resident overnight visitors to the municipality.
I can look at that and advise you by the council meeting.
I'll pass the printed email down to you so you have the reference.
Thank you very much.
And then, like I said, this goes for web.com too, that if it turns out we need to correct something, I'm more than happy to bring an amendment to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
And basically what your amendment does is lay down criteria for how we're going to proceed with this type of thing?
Yes, I had actually spoken with several aldermen that I think going forward that maybe what we ought to try doing with this CVB money is treating it almost like a TIF, where we authorize an expenditure up to a certain amount and they have to come in with authorized expenditures that they've already done for reimbursement from the authorized ordinance. And that way there, you may have a case where sliders may be authorized up to 20,000, but they might only spend 12 on authorized expenditures. It's not a blank check. That's the one thing that I want to make sure that I stress to the public, is that this Convention and Visitors Bureau money is not a piggy bank. It's not a blank check that we hand over and that the people running these things can use for anything they want. There are specific things that this money is supposed to go for.
And I totally agree with you, Alderman Tyland, and going forward, I think that that's a wonderful idea, because I know with the web.com for the last 2 years, I don't think I ever saw a budget.
And I questioned it as well.
With very specifically the way that the budget that was presented for the Juneteenth funding, it was very specific, line item out where every penny was going to go. I never saw a budget with that for either of the years of the web.com, and I didn't see anyone come in to explain how that money was expended. So I would certainly be in favor of moving forward with the way that you anticipate. And if you bring forward an ordinance to that effect, I would be happy to join as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. And like I said, I think we need to apply it retroactively to any spending this budget cycle.
Well, how are you going to do that?
But yeah, how would you do that retroactively?
I think that what we would do is we would have to bring an amendment to any previous ordinance that spent any money out of this fund. And it may be a little tricky. There may be a couple of cases that we may not be able to get the cat back in the bag. But I think that we can.
Well, I would certainly be in favor of proceeding going forward. I think that, I don't know that it would be, that we would have the ability to do it retroactively.
Quick question. They'd sign a contract, right, or an agreement, and if they violate the agreement or something, then they don't get the money, right? Corporation Counsel, or how does that work? For the money that we're supposed to give them for the purpose that they get it for, right?
That's correct.
So then how would you handle a violation of contract like that? If
they'd have to give the money back. I mean, it would be one remedy, or show that they spent other money that was otherwise, eligible.
So we have that covered then, kind of, it sounds like.
Well, I think it would be difficult to make it retroactive on monies that have already maybe been provided for. However, keep in mind the council has broad authority to make a determination of what it deems appropriate to serve tourism. When you get into those kinds of discussion, those things like events or tourism or attracting, public events and so on, I think the council does have pretty broad authority to make judgments on, what's appropriate to when it comes to spending tax dollars. If there's a way to make an objective standard, that makes it easier. But as far as an actual legal challenge, or if there'd be someone that would argue that it wouldn't be tourism or something, those kind of arguments would be very difficult to ever, sustain.
Well, okay, Alderman Hanna. And then,
and also, I think that we've got to look at the whole. I like what you're like, and I believe I said that during the web.com stuff, but I think we also have to look at it as far as, I think TIP we only give, 30%, 25%?
Typically one-third is.
One-third, and I think we ought to set I'm afraid that if we set a ceiling, that when the staff actually goes out to do something, it'll hurt them, but I think that on something, we need to look at that as well. That ought to be part of it. But I do like the idea that, we have criteria and, if they use it for advertising or whatever, I just don't know how we get to that point.
We can draft a ordinance with Alderman Thailand to take maybe the language out of the state law, if that would be helpful as a starting point for at least discussion.
I was thinking that would be a good place to start, that exact section.
Okay, Alderman Senor.
Corporate counsel, if we make this retroactive, what parameters are we going to use? How far are we going to go back, and what all are we going to look at to implement this? I think from this point forward would be a good idea, Chris. I like what you're saying, but I don't want to open it up to when we're going to arbitrarily set a date to how far we're going to go back into what projects we're going to look at. So how would you distinguish?
I think the
how would you come up
only
with that?
The only other expenditure out of this fund so far, this new budget, has been web.com, and I believe that
I think Route 66 as
Route
well.
66.
Last week, correct? I thought there was one other one.
So I think maybe if the mayor's office just, has a conversation with them about what that money's supposed to be spent for. I don't know if you guys wrote a check to them or if they're supposed to come to you with, how does CVB write a check to the advertising agency?
And there's part two to the question. If we make this retroactive, this is going to make us look at other things and allow us to go back and be retroactive in those.
I just didn't want anyone feeling like I was singling out all events going forward. I'm happy to draw a line in the sand and go forward from here if you think that it's too problematic, but I don't want people thinking that we're giving a free pass to the events that we just passed.
All right, Alderman Redpath.
Alderman, I understand where you're going with this, but going backwards on this is going to be a problem. I don't think we ought to consider doing that. And the reason is because it's just going to open up a can of worms, like Alderman Senor said. We just need, we recognize that we didn't have a good criteria of how we gave this money out, so we just need to move forward. Your idea is a good idea. I think most of the council agrees with that, and we just need to lay out the parameters for how people can come and ask for money. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to give it to them, but we need to have parameters and criteria before we go forward.
I just wanted to try to be fair.
I got you.
So
No, I agree, and like I said, when you bring an ordinance to that effect, I'd be happy to co-sponsor it.
thank you.
All right, Alderman Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a representative of the Sliders here?
No.
We'll make sure next week.
Yeah, what I'd like to know is I'd like to kind of a summary like we got from the web.com folks as to what the money was used for last year. As you said, it was $15,000, like kind of an accounting, what they did with it.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
what is planned for this request as well?
He'll be here. I'll see if I'll make that request for you. All right?
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Does this have to be a 501c3 organization or some type of a charitable thing without that designation? I mean, what do we have to do?
There would be no requirement that they're a not-for-profit in order to utilize, tourism grants or tourism funds. I think Sliders are for-profit. I think. I could be mistaken on that, but certainly, though, hotels and motels are all for-profit, so the taxes are supposed to indirectly benefit their activities, tourism, and so on. So I don't think we're limited just to a 501c3. It's a judgment call on the part of the council.
All right. Anyone else want to speak before John comes up?
You're going to let him speak before we vote, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah. John, feel free.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is John Boyles. Live here in Springfield and represent an owner who has 3 hotels in Springfield, the Hampton Inn and Suites, the Staybridge Suites, and the Wingate Inn. And total 280 some rooms. So we are a Springfield-based company. I grew up, went to school with our mayor, grade school, going back to kindergarten. So, I'm familiar with Springfield and, how this whole process kind of works. Just one thing we've been concerned about with the way the money's been taken from the Bureau here recently is that it's not being invested to bring groups and bring tourism. There's a group right now that we're in jeopardy of losing because there's another city who's willing to pay for their convention center. And I would rather spend money to provide convention space and give us thousands of room nights in the city of Springfield than somebody that gives us 0 nights in the city of Springfield. And I appreciate, your comments. I think you're spot on a lot of things, Alderman Tylen, about where this needs to go. And, I've been around the hotel business in over 30 years in Springfield. And I've kind of become the historian for the Hotel Association, unfortunately. And, I know when this taxes first started, it was to promote tourism in town. It was to bring conventions to town. And the problem I have with, the ordinances that are being proposed tonight is do they bring business? Do they book rooms? And, I did a blast email with the Hotel Association to our fellow hoteliers today on hotels that are receiving room nights from the sliders in the last year or two. And just my short list is Doubletree 0, Crown Plaza 0, Wingate Inn 0, Hampton Inn Suites 0, Staybridge Suites 0, Holiday Express 0, Comfort Suites 0. I can go on. There's another 5 more on there that are getting 0. There's one hotel in town, and their comment was that they have to pay a sponsorship and give away a lot of comp rooms. So basically, they're doing it as a charitable type of thing. So I've been back in Springfield for 3 years, and I've never had anybody from the sliders make a sales call on me or anything. And I've been around Springfield long enough to remember our AAA team with Leon Durham playing first base. And those people used to come to our hotel and provide tickets to our guests, do 2-for-1s for our guests, promote their team to our hotel. And nobody's come to see any of our hotels in 3 years. So that troubles me that somebody's asking, a for-profit company is asking for hotel tax dollars, and they've not tried to build a relationship with the hotels. They haven't even tried to show up at any of our meetings that we have quarterly. So that's troublesome to me. Like I said, hopefully, to answer part of your question moving forward with hopefully our new director, Scott, here, is that, he'll be able to do a budget in the future. And if the money's not in the budget, then we won't be able to give it out for this organization or that organization. It'll be a budgeted number that he's going to have to live with and that he's going to be able to spend. Like I said, I'd rather see the thousands of dollars spent directly to bring business to town. So.
Hey, 1 second. John, I agree with you. I'd like to see this money spent for, well, let me back up. Let me be fair to the sliders. They're not asking for this. This is something I'm trying to do for them, to try to keep a business on the north end alive, because the sliders are running a deficit, a massive loss each year. And so they're dealing with a lot up there. So this is my attempt to continue with the support that we did last year, to support them, hopefully so they stay on the north end as an active business and attract people. And I do know that they bring people to Springfield from the outside. And you might not have gotten the facts from your hotel, colleagues. And I'd question the numbers if, when people call saying they're staying at your hotel, do they pretty much tell you that they're staying because of sliders? I doubt it. But I do agree with you that this money needs to be spent on conventions and stuff. But we don't really see much from the CVB to bring the ordinance like these further to attract, conventions and stuff. So maybe I just don't understand the process and some money's not getting out, but I agree with you.
Well, my response would be is that we are private businesses too. And there's 5 hotels in Springfield that have gone into receivership in the last 5 years. And they haven't, they didn't reach out to get bailed out. The bank took them back. So, we're not making hand over fist in the hotel business. A 3% reduction in my 3 hotels with 280 rooms will cost $300,000 plus this year. And you take that over this whole city, you're talking the millions of dollars of revenue that would be taxed. And I would rather spend the money that's going to bring direct conventions and business to Springfield that's measurable and makes more sense to me.
All right. Alderman Turner.
I think Alderman.
John, you gave us some numbers on heads and beds situations. can you tell me do you have any numbers on the golf tournament in the hotels?
You know, I'm going to be biased. I'm just honestly biased. We're located near Panther Creek, and our ownership management company does sponsor the web tour. So we did see a couple hundred room nights from them the last couple of years, probably more, our 3 hotels. So
is there more?
I'm probably not an unbiased person to answer that question.
Well, I just wanted to.
We're receiving more rooms than anybody else in town.
I mean, I think that's how we gauge things about putting heads in beds, obviously. And the bottom line is that I know you would probably have benefited more but was there more downtown? Was there out on Dirkland Parkway? I mean, were they using the hotels too?
I don't want to speak for them. I just want to speak for my 3 hotels that I have, and we did benefit. So.
I think Alderman Tylen, then we had Turner, if you want to go in order.
Okay. I do know from going out to Sliders games and talking with different people in the crowd that we do bring in parents and family and sometimes college friends who come in, stay for the weekend to see the boys play. And they may not necessarily, as Alderman Proctor said, identify as a Sliders room in that particular case, but I do know that there are some. We do bring some in. A lot of family and friends coming in to see the boys play ball. But I think where I see this is I see an opportunity here. I know that I've been pushing for several years that we needed to change our marketing identity, the way that we were trying to push the city of Springfield. We needed to try to push for weekend getaways. We needed to try to push for, in some cases, within the 100-mile radius, the people coming up for just a quick daycation, come to town. And I know that doesn't really put a head in the bed, but it helps us with the other tourism aspects as well. And I think that one of the things that we should be looking at going forward with the marketing strategy here, when we're talking about things like web.com, when we're talking about things like these Sliders, when we're looking at something like Juneteenth or Blues and Barbecue or the Bacon Throwdown or the Amaranth Apple, which I'm sure I said that wrong.
No, you're right.
That would be the first time I got it right. I think we need to start packaging what we have to offer. We've got Kidseum coming open soon. We've got Knights Action Park. We've got other things where these people could come up, bring their kids, go to Knights Action Park for the afternoon, catch a ball game in the night, and then turn around and go to the Blues and Barbecue the next day. I mean, we need to start packaging what we're doing, and I'm really hoping that you hear what I'm saying. Because I pushed Gina, and I pushed Fred, and I felt in a lot of cases that Fred got it, and I didn't think Gina knew what I was talking about. So I'm really hoping that we go forward in a way that is more with the modern tourist. Because these people aren't going to come here and stay for 5 days. They're just not. That's not the way it works anymore. People don't have that much vacation time built up anymore. They don't have that kind of funding. They just don't have that time in their lives anymore. If we get them here for 2 nights, I think that you're happy.
And just to comment on the Kidseum, the Hotel Association has been a supporter. They've reached out to the Hotel Association, made the contacts. Hotel Association as a group has provided quite a few comp rooms for long, extended periods of time to people. So I feel better about groups that are trying to help themselves than for us to help them too.
And maybe this is a case where Scott can start getting people together in a room that need to be there.
Alderman Turner?
I just want to kind of piggyback on one of the points that Alderman Tylen was making. I've been on the council for 7 years, and each time the Tourism Bureau, their promotional team makes a presentation, a big piece of their presentation is day trips to Springfield and what can happen on a day trip and people coming here to spend the day. And so I think that just because people aren't staying overnight or booking hotel rooms doesn't mean that the money that we are using to promote events and to encourage more events happening in Springfield isn't a benefit to the city, and this money that we're spending isn't promoting tourism, because it is.
It's just an experience that we have to present to people. So I agree with you.
Yeah, so it is, and just in defense of of the event that I'm promoting, it is one of the larger celebrations of this type that happens in Illinois. And there are people that come here from throughout the state. Some of them stay overnight, some of them don't. So I just don't think that we can lose the benefit of those day trips to Springfield.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, Alderman Hanauer.
One thing, and hopefully for the, good luck getting in there and getting going, but one of the things that we see, you know, some in the past is we've seen spending $20,000 in Berlin for us. And I mean, I know some of it's federal money and that, but I don't know that we've ever tracked how many people we get off that. And I mean, I just would like to see us spend our money to try to get more, you know, yeah, the conventions are great, but I don't recall seeing a whole lot of money, you know, us appropriating money in order to bring conventions in. I mean, I'm sure that we have, but I don't know that it's been that many.
And how big of an impact
and how
was
big
it when
of
we
an
lost the
impact,
rodeo?
you know? And so, I mean, it just, you got some work to do. So I just think we got to work on trying to get more conventions in. I agree with you, but we need to try to get people here for one-day events and you know,
everything.
You know, we got to encompass everything, and you know, Europe and, you know, Holland and all that, you know, all those places that we put the advertising in. I don't know that we have a way to track that.
Yeah, they fly into Chicago, spend most of their time there, and come down here for a day or two.
So that's just my point.
Most of our business comes from Chicago and St. Louis and Western Illinois. That's the majority of our customers. So.
Yeah, before we take the vote, that kind of piggybacks off the question I was trying to ask, is when CVB partnered with the Hotel Motel Lodging Association, packages an incentive program together to attract a convention, do we have to vote on that appropriation here, or does that just get spent out when we approve the budget?
If it's under the threshold, it doesn't have to come to us.
No, I understand that, but so have we had things like that been requested to come before this body for consideration that we have not seen or have been voting on? I don't know who can answer that, but
I don't remember any.
My understanding, I'm not an expert on either, but if a group has a proven record in history providing X number of room nights, then the CBB is able to give, and I don't know if you know that, 2,500 as far as, you're not sure yet either? Yeah. I'll ask you next month. Okay. Yes.
So
to support the payment, and usually that money is used to pay for the civic center space.
So $2,500. You feel that's competitive in this market that we need to do?
We don't do it enough.
So what do you think we need to do?
There's other cities that are doing a great deal more than we are, and they're stealing business.
I agree with you. And one of the questions I asked early on was the creation of an advisory commission for the Hotel Lodging Association to be partnered with the CVB. And I guess I'd like a status update on that request at next week's meeting, if I can get that.
Director Dahl will answer that.
Absolutely. All right, cool. All right.
It's on the list.
All right, appreciate it. So I hope you can talk about that when you come up here. I'll give it for that.
Yeah, we'll vote him in first and let him talk.
All right, so we got to vote on this one. Or Alderman Senor.
Yeah, Chris, you bring up a more valid point. Since what is the threshold that we have to vote on? Since I mean, isn't the Juneteenth one under the threshold that we would need to vote on?
Both of these would technically be under the legal threshold of the 25 that we have set by Corporation Council.
So I mean,
Can answer that?
Yeah, he pointed that last year.
Before the amendment was made.
Will you?
Bring up the ordinances in
Our
front of
code
us.
specifically states that if it's a sponsorship, it has to come to the council for approval, regardless of the amount.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Thanks, Joe.
City
Yes, sir.
Attorney.
Yes, sir. And thank you for pointing it out.
Thanks, Alderman McMenamin, for reminding us of that.
Okay, I think we have was that your last question? All right.
So point of information, the breakdown now is we're voting A and B on this. Is that right, Corporation?
That is correct. You may recall that procedurally, the motion was made to divide the question. It's my understanding that passed. So if you would, having divided the question, you would do two separate votes. First sliders, then Juneteenth, just because that's the order they came in on the ordinance.
All right, so we got to do, what's up? You have a question?
So I guess my request is for next week, can we have some language for amendments for that kind of thought process of the reimbursement and the...
Yeah, I can look at the statute and maybe send you something tomorrow or the next day to look at.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shout out, hold it.
Alderman Turner.
It's okay.
That was so inappropriate. I apologize. I just didn't hear you.
I was asking if we could have some amendment language possible for next week on
To do what?
On what I had talked about with the expenditures and the...
I thought we were going to do that going forward.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a separate ordinance, best done as a
And
separate ordinance?
that was going to be my next
That's
question,
fine.
is that it would be a separate ordinance, and I thought it would be for going forward.
If it was
I
the-
misunderstood, and that's fine.
Okay.
If it was the council's pleasure to, this might be something that would be appropriate to put into the city code as a
Yes.
standard.
Yes.
Therefore, it would be a separate ordinance. If you wanted to somehow amend this one, that's a separate matter, but it would not be
I
an amendment
think
to
the
the
will
code.
of the council is to finish what we started here,
Okay.
and let's go forward from here on.
So the first item would be to vote on 207A, referring to that sliders, and then
We actually have
207B,
new
June
numbers.
10th.
We got new numbers from the clerk. Sliders will be 207, and then Juneteenth will be 210.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so let's vote on 207, correct?
Yes. Roll call, Mr. Chairman.
All right, motion for debate on 207, which is for the sliders, 20,000 CVB money for the sliders. All in favor?
Roll call, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Alderman Redpath.
No.
Alderman Senor.
This is for debate, correct?
Yeah, put it on debate.
No.
Alderman Turner.
Yes.
Alderman Fulgenzi.
Yes.
Alderman Proctor.
Yes.
Alderman DeCenso.
No.
Alderman McMiniman.
For debate, yes.
Alderman Tylen.
Yes.
Alderman Donlin.
For debate, yes.
Alderman Hanover.
For debate, yes.
Okay. You have 7 yeses and 3 nos.
All right, so motion carries for debate for ordinance 207. Now, roll 210. All in favor? Aye.
What is the motion?
It's the debate motion for Juneteenth for 8,000 for Juneteenth.
For debate.
All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries for debate.
All right, general city business, 2018-201, an ordinance approving the transfer of property located at 715 East Cook Street, Springfield, Illinois, to Elijah Isles House Foundation for redevelopment as a carriage house.
Which consent?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries for consent.
2018-202, an ordinance approving the appointment of Scott E. Dahl as Director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Motion for debate.
Second.
And I guess the only question I have for tonight is that in the case of the difference between an acting director and an appointed director by ordinance, with an acting director, it wouldn't necessarily be subject to the residency requirement. And I noticed on the email that your address is in Williamsville. So I just want to bring that out in the open.
Yeah, no, it is. And I'm fully aware of the residential requirements.
And is it same as a job posting? The job posting say on the bottom that if a person accepts the job, they have 12 months to move in. Is that the way it is for the directors as well?
Yes, I mean, I think that's something that can be required, and all the directors have to live into the city. So
I just didn't know if it was the same standard that we did with the residency on the job postings. Like we just had 4 postings go up today.
Isn't it a little bit different because before the residency requirement,
All managers
directors were
they were required
to
before.
live in Springfield.
So I'm just wondering where do we go from here? Like how long does Scott have? I mean, obviously you can't put your house up and go like this, so.
Right. My understanding was at least 12 months, 1 year.
That's the end of the term anyway, so, well, no offense.
I was thinking about running for Ward 1 Alderman.
Just saying.
So if that's the case, then wouldn't it be appropriate just for him to remain acting?
That was my initial thought process too. And I would just want to know which way we go from here.
Yeah, because, not to be argumentative, but if by statute all directors are required to live in Springfield, then I don't know that that's.
How far into Williamsburg are you going? The mayor wants to do some annexations. We could just.
We're out by the lake. It's nice. 10-acre lake.
I think Corporation Counsel will have to answer it. I think it was 12 months, I believe, but he'd have to answer.
I'll be happy to.
He wrote the code, I believe. Didn't you write the code?
I will be happy to look at that and give you a formal opinion on it.
Alderman Senor.
Mr. Dahl,
Yes, on the timing.
I think if we have standards, we need to live by those standards. And I think if you're going to accept this position and you know what our standards are, that you comply with them as well you can.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Scott, like to say anything? Or tell us about yourself?
I've lived in the Springfield area for over 20 years, and I've worked for the Illinois Hotel Lodging Association for 16. I spent 10 years in the hotel industry in operations, worked my way up through maintenance and through the system there. I'm very excited about what I could do for Springfield. I've been traveling around, again, for 16 years with IHLA. I've had a unique perspective, not only on the hotel side, but on the CVB side. I've seen what other CVBs are doing across the state. I see what they do right, what they do wrong. And I would love an opportunity to bring that to Springfield. I think that I can take the CVB to the next level.
All right, any questions, Mr. Mayor?
If you'd want to go into, you did live in Springfield, and what took you to Williamsville?
Yeah, so we lived in Deerfield subdivision for 10 years.
Ward 10, thank you.
Yep, Ward 10. You got it.
But he left. Yeah, but he left.
You got it? Well, we didn't leave. Was it? We didn't want to leave, but my wife, Brandy, worked for Cisco Foods, and they built in Lincoln, unfortunately not Springfield. And so she was driving 45 miles one way, 90 miles round trip, and we had a 2-year-old at the time. And it was just too much, so we decided to split the difference, and we moved to Williamsville.
Chris first. Alderman Tylen, and then
And Scott, I've asked around, and a lot of people have told me that you do have, the words on paper. You actually have the experience to back it up, is what I've been told by people. That you're the type of guy who can actually get in there and make substantial changes and not be afraid about bucking the status quo. I also was told by someone else that you're not afraid to tell people in authority their opinion. Sorry, Mayor, that means we're going to hear from him. So
you hear from all my directors freely. They're free to speak.
But,
really?
But what I'm saying is that from what I've heard is that you're not afraid to say that we're doing something in a way that's not as effective as it could be. And I think that's exactly what we need in the CVB area. You've got some great employees over there. Yes. I think every single one of them works their heart out. It's just I think that we're not giving them the right direction in some cases.
And I agree, and thank you. Yes, that is me, and absolutely, I think the team is very solid there right now. They just need some new direction. We need to. I sent you an email that outlined some of the goals and ideas that I had, and the culture is number one. I'm gonna get in there and we're gonna create a new culture at the CVB, and we're gonna increase the communication. So you will all know where the CVB stands and where tourism stands in Springfield on a routine basis. We'll have a quarterly newsletter coming out that will give you updates on what's happening on our social media pages, who's following us, what they're doing, and also what groups we're bringing into town and what we're doing. And they'll be filled with pictures and text, and I think the communication will be tremendously increased.
And then I just wanted to say to you that personally, I think that people who live all throughout Sangamon County have a vested interest in the city of Springfield. But as Alderman Senior pointed out, we do have our rules, and it was brought to my attention by a couple different people for different reasons. And I thought it was best to put it out in the open rather than have it be something that becomes a problem later.
Sure.
Alderman Senior, then Redpath.
welcome aboard. Sorry you had to be initiated like this.
That's
but,
all right.
Where the CVB is now and 6 months from now, what would you like to see take place?
Well, we need to get a director of sales hired. We need to get a sales leader hired. That has been must needed. I think it's been probably 3 years, maybe 4 years since we had our sales team has really had someone leading them. Obviously, I'm gonna be the executive director overall, but we need somebody leading the sales team. So that will change dramatically. Our sales team, the direction that they will change. I'm going to sit down with each of them individually in the first week and figure out what they're doing, what they think they should be doing, what their goals should be as well. And then we'll combine that. We'll hire the director of sales, get them as soon as possible, he or she, and we'll start setting new sales goals. And one for sure is conventions. We need to drive conventions. Leisure tourism, absolutely. Alderman Time. Absolutely, we need to drive leisure tourism as well, and weekend packages and what have you, and I definitely hear that. But we need to drive conventions as well. Conventions is where it's at. And we're going to need some kind of bid fund down the road because we have other cities that are spending money on conventions, and the conventions are going there. Whether it's an association business or other larger conventions, they need funding as well. And I'm not sure who started that in the CVB world. Maybe that started 20 years ago, but it's really increased through the years, and we need to have a bid fund. We need to spend some money to buy these conventions because we're getting outspent right now if you look around the state.
Can you go more into detail? How does a bid fund work?
Well, we set aside, however, we allocate X amount of dollars. Let's say it's $100,000 a year. And we put that into the fund, and then as groups come in, conventions come in, they request funding for whatever it may be for their group, and then we take that out of the bid fund. Now, of course, we'll have parameters for that, and we'll be able to have standards for that, and that's where the advisory council, as we're talking about, Alderman Proctor, that was on my list as well. We certainly need an advisory council to help guide the CVB as well so that we don't get blinders on at the CVB. So we have a lot of ideas coming in. They can run through the standards it would take and what the requirements it take to make the funding available to the conventions. Also, we're talking about, and it was kind of odd listening to this going on about the CVB and all this funding when I'm sitting back here and, a week away. But, the Tourism Council can help with that as well. And, my belief is that it should be in the budget. And, all groups should have a chance at that. And if they want to request funding and we can prove there's overnights or there's an impact to the city, absolutely get it in. But let's get it in before the budget. Then we don't have to do this back and forth. And the Tourism Advisory Council can certainly help with that before the budget gets passed.
Okay. On Red Path.
Yeah.
First off, this isn't fair because there's a sun's coming in over the glow of your head like you're an angel or something.
Sorry. I did just shave it. I did just shave my head.
But, it goes back to what John said earlier about the conventions. And I'm going to tell you, I remember the times when the city of Springfield was full of conventions and it wasn't just downtown. We got to stop thinking about just downtown.
Great.
We have hotels out on Dirksen Parkway and Stevenson Drive and out west too. And we got to make sure that we're spreading the wealth around to get everybody part of this. And it's really important that we do it globally. When the people came in who put out our brochure, we said make sure you include Lake Springfield because that's a big deal. And we have hotels out there, and the Crown Plaza out there is having trouble, and we need to support them just as much as we do the downtown. Not that I'm trying to put down anybody downtown because we need it too, but we got to spread it around. And back to the advisory council, if you do that, make sure that there's people from the outskirts of the city involved in that, along with the people on the outskirts of the city, because we all have hotels at our areas too. Okay?
Absolutely.
And that it's very diverse.
Yes.
Absolutely. And there is, going back to the Crown, the Crown does have 50,000 square feet.
And back to that, the hotels that are on Dirksen Parkway are in Alderman Turner's ward because that's no longer in Ward 1 and Stevenson Drive. So we need that representation as well as we need some downtown. Okay?
Absolutely.
Alderman Senior.
Yeah, and I hope you're aware of the event coming in August 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the big motorcycle roundup. So I'm sure that you all from the Hotel Association, I hope you all are aware of that there's going to be plenty of people here, so you have plenty of rooms to be filled. Plenty of people to fill the room. So so just hopefully you're aware of that, and you've been talking to those folks that are involved with that.
I haven't talked to them personally yet, but I will. Okay. And absolutely, we'll connect with them as well. And, you know, those are the kind of events that are going to help us to get to the 60% occupancy. And this goal that everyone's going to be in on this 60% occupancy. We are going to drive towards that.
Alderman Tylen.
One last question. It kind of goes with what Chuck and Doris have been talking about on that side. I mean, I know I just saw something today where Rochester's going to have a car show. And Rochester, I don't believe, has hotels. That's our function. You know, I think we need to, as you said, look to the outskirts. We have all these small towns and communities surrounding us, and yet we have the hotels. And I think that we need to remember that we could still put heads in beds that affect Springfield when these people are coming in for things that are outside of here within a 10, 15-mile radius easily.
Yeah, and great point again. And if you look at if you saw the email that I sent out, 8 or 9 on there, it says a regional marketing program. And I want to bring in eventually Litchfield, Jacksonville, and Lincoln. Lincoln, their Chamber of Commerce is bankrupt. The Balloon Fest is no longer. I mean, that's something we need to take a look at. I was talking to Sarah Wagner in Litchfield, and I was taking the train home from the Governor's Tourism Conference, and she partners with Southern Illinois. She actually gives Southern Illinois money out of Litchfield to jump on the back of their marketing. Why can't they in Springfield as well? I mean, I think we can generate 50 to 100,000 a year, bring in these other areas, what you're talking about, Rochester and what have you. So when they have events, we're housing them. We bring them all together. We create a regional marketing partnership. And that's not new. I mean, that's happening all over the state.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, there's a motion for debate, correct?
Yes. Correct.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
2018-203, an ordinance approving the appointment of Neil Hurry to the Springfield Electrical Commission.
Move for debate.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
2018-204, an ordinance reappointing Roger W. Holmes as Inspector General for the City of Springfield.
Move for debate.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, is this,
do
we have to, Judge Malik is also on that. Does he have to be appointed too, Jim?
I will check that. I don't recall if he's the alternate in the event of a conflict, so let me check to see if we should add him as the alternate.
Okay.
I'll do that before the Tuesday meeting.
All right.
Alderman Hanauer.
I believe the last time we had to at least authorize payment for him just as the alternate in case we would have to pay him, so it might be pertinent to just add him. I don't think it'll hurt anything, but.
I think my memory is that last year I think there were, and I can check this for you if you like, I think there were probably 2 or 3 instances where he acted in an alternate capacity. Right. And I think the total amount of that was maybe a couple of $1,000s, but I'll be happy to check and let you know for sure. All right.
All right. Any other questions?
And Roger decides that. In other words, he's the one who decides whether or not there's a conflict. Right. All right.
Any other questions? All right, motion for debate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And that completes our ordinances, correct? All right, cool. Unfinished business. Alderman Hanauer.
Yes, I've asked with everything with Bright New Day, it doesn't, from what I'm hearing, it's not sounding too good for that project. And I've asked Mr. Zirkle to draft I guess, a ordinance that would bring back the TIF money and unallocate it so it goes back into the funds. I don't know what, I just wanted to let everybody know that I did make that request. And if anything changes on until we get that, but right now I don't know. It doesn't sound very promising.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we spoke with the tax credit people. As like some of you know, Blackline was the St. Louis group that Rick was trying to get into the project. They decided not to. In talking with NTCIC, they're the tax credit people. They said action will probably have to be taken in about 2 weeks, and First Bankers Trust is working on an alternative with Rick, so we should know within 2 weeks whether it proceeds or not.
And Mayor, may I add also that the tax credit people who are primary component on this have indicated they still consider the project viable, but they're concerned about the makeup of the developer, essentially. So they're willing to proceed if the right combination comes together, and that is what the bank is working on.
But the tax credits go with the project, goes with Bright New Day, so.
That is correct.
If funds are pulled, I would think the tax credits go by the wayside, be my guess. I mean, I think we'd be better off. We've been at it this far, 2 weeks. I think it's worth the wait.
I'm fine with that.
And then Redpath.
But here's my concern. Mr. Lawrence has already sent out an email to the subs that he owes money to, in some instances asking them to reduce their fund, what he owes. The second thing he's also asked, my understanding is, he's told them that Blackline was coming in and their services were no longer needed. So this project has fallen off the rail, and I mean it's a mess. And I'm concerned. We've already had banks that have refused to loan them, and at some point in time, we need to pull that money back. And I'd like to see the project be successful, but I don't think he is the man to do it. And I'm very concerned about not only him, but the subs and all that he's gone out and said that they're no longer needed. So I'm just bringing, that's where I'm coming from on this, is what I'm saying.
Well, if we pull the funds back, then the vendors don't get paid. It's, I think the ordinance was passed. The first point of order, once the tax credits are closed, everybody gets paid. So if we do pull the ordinance, that minimizes the opportunity to pay the back bills that are associated with the project. But everybody wants to see it moving forward. It's been a challenge. I don't know if Corporation Counsel wants to add any clarity to that.
What I was going to say is that I think what Alderman Hanauer, in the initial discussion, Alderman, that you just wanted it not to be an open-ended situation. And I think that is very proper, and in fact, that's the position that the mayor's taken with the banks and everybody. This is going to be coming to a head here very rapidly. It's not going to just be left open-ended, which was your primary concern. It just couldn't be left out there.
Well, at this point, if we don't have anything by the council meeting in the middle of May, it would it was my understanding that they were going to know something at the end of the month that this money was that we voted on the TIF, and that's how many months ago. So I agree. We want to try to give it as much chance, but we've given them plenty of chances.
The original schedule, I believe, contemplated a closing at the end of February, first part of March, for the tax credits. Because remember, the tax credits, what's kind of driving both the bank and the city. There have been about 60 days of delay as this thing has kind of moved around in terms of both changing the scope and then different estimates. So we're about 60 days or 45 days, I guess, wouldn't that be correct, about 45 days past the original schedule, all related to scope of work, the estimates to finish, and some of the other problems related to it. So I would think that probably in the next 30 days, one way or the other, something's going to happen, and it's just going to, it's got a very short shelf life at this point.
All right, Alderman Redpath and McMiniman.
You know, Corporation Counsel and the Mayor, I give you credit for trying to save this project. It's never been about the project. It's been about the developer. We all know that he's not handled things properly. He's always had trouble with this project from the beginning. Alderman Hanauer hit it right on the head. People are fed up with this, and the bottom line is that project, we'd like to see it go. We need that downtown Springfield, but we never needed this developer. This developer has been a problem from the beginning. So that's the head of the whole thing. So thank you.
All right, Alderman McMiniman.
Well, just that when we talked about this in executive session last week, we said that this council set conditions on the developer and we had contingencies, and the developer has not met the contingencies. So it's not, I understand what you're saying, Ralph, but it's not like we're trying to save some money before it gets spent. The money's been saved. I mean, the money can't be spent under current conditions. So until, and I understand you want to free up this money maybe for other projects, but I don't see that as being critical until we have some other projects out there that are asking for the same money that would otherwise be spent for Bright New Day. So I don't think we're at any risk right now for just holding back to see if the Hail Mary goes through.
Amen.
All right, any further discussion on this item? All right, any other unfinished business? I had one really quick. Just Corporation Council, I put in, since we are to the process of doing alleys and stuff, I asked for, I guess, a legal interpretation of a private alley or how we want to handle this one. Enterprise to Miller, 6th to 7th. And if you can give me an answer, I'd appreciate on that one.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other unfinished? Well, the alleys, it's privately owned. So.
Did you talk to the alley cat?
No. Not yet. She's my next
Alley
phone
Queen.
call.
We call you Alley Cat.
Alley Cat.
Alley Cat.
My God.
All right.
I like my
Alderman
alleys.
Senor, and then back to Hanauer.
I want to give a shout out to Director Huerta, who handled Ms. Moore that was in front of us last week about the CWLP. Juan, I think you did an excellent job. I read your email and thanks for you and Mr. Crutcher's hard work. And Mr. Crutcher, shout out to you also for taking care of the young lady.
Thank you.
He's from Ward 1, man. He's cool.
Back to Alderman Hanauer.
Real quick, I got a question. It was apparently the Benedictine is gone, and we got a contract with them. Is there for what is it, the
Video?
TV show?
Yeah.
Are they still fulfilling that, or is it something we need to look at, maybe another local entity, or is it something that Tony can take over, or I mean?
Yeah, yep.
Julia's going to answer that.
I
Can she speak? Mr. Mayor, that's one of your directors. Can she
Tony, no offense, he's a video tech.
We only had a temporary contract with Benedictine to do a trial period, so they did fulfill that. We spent about $8,000. They wrote the curriculum and then taught actually 2 classes. So we have equipment, and they're actually looking at giving us their equipment so we can continue that at another location.
Okay. I wanted to ask that.
Okay.
They are, I think they still have offices there. Of course, the campus is up for sale. And I don't know if there's anything more to add than that.
Just hope for community engagement in the sale.
Yeah, and they want to sell it all at once because I asked them about piecing or parceling off certain buildings, but at this point, they want to sell it as one campus.
That could be the Langfelder compound.
It's not big enough.
He had that huge success downtown with the,
Yeah, didn't I?
with the Lincoln Herndon building. Now he's branching out.
See, I allowed my director to speak freely on that.
We can put
Have
tourism.
they come up with any kind of a price yet, or they?
Not yet, I don't think so.
We can put a tourism office down there.
We already have one.
Several.
2.
Any other unfinished business? Alderman Turner.
There was a large shred recycle event at Bunn over the weekend, and from all accounts, it was a huge success. So kudos to Office of Public Works for organizing that.
They took tires, too, I believe.
Yeah, it seems they just took everything. So and even some electronics that couldn't go to Bunn, they partnered with BLH to take them. So it was a major event. So thank you.
All right. Anybody else on unfinished business? Moving on to new business. Alderman Tylen has 3.
Yeah, the first one's pretty simple for the police chief. I thought it was appropriate that maybe you talk about the prescription drop-off this coming weekend. Some people may have painkillers or other drugs that they finished using, but they have extras left that they don't want to end up getting in the groundwater or other things. There are several locations that are set up with the Springfield Police Department for prescription drug take-back, and it's this weekend. And I'd just like the chief to give those locations and hours and kind of a description of what kind of stuff they're going to take back.
It's my understanding they'll take any kind of used medicine or unused medicine. It's at Hy-Vee, and it's at Prevention First, and it's from 10 to 2? 10 to 2.
Okay, and this is, if you've got them in the bottles, if you got them in a baggie, it doesn't matter. You just bring the drugs in
It's
and
a
turn them
drive-through
over.
service that we set up over at Prevention First. I'd have to check on Hy-Vee. I don't know if it's going to be a drive-through service there or not, but at Prevention First, you can drive through. You don't have to get out of your car.
But, and this is a situation that we've talked about at the Public Health Board and other things. If you've got old prescription drugs laying around your house, don't leave them there for your kids, your grandkids to find. Get them turned over before somebody takes them.
Absolutely.
Is that your first item?
That was the first item. The second item is at the request of the city for Alderman Donlin and I on 100 and 200 block of North Illinois. I now have the east side of the road. Alderman Donlin has the west. It used to all be in Ward 8. But they went through and had a parking issue very similar to what Alderman DeCenzo had in Ward 6. And according to the city traffic engineer report, they determined that 100 and 200 North Illinois, that residents of this section of Illinois Street, that it's a very narrow roadway that is bordered on both sides by sidewalk with no setback. There's no grass between the sidewalk and the street. It just goes straight from street to curb to sidewalk. We need to maintain, there have been multiple tickets issued along this section of roadway for parking on the sidewalk. We need to maintain accessible ADA pedestrian routes and cannot allow the sidewalks to be obstructed for any reason. Given the roadway width, the best scenario is to make one side no parking. This section of Illinois Street is generally 25 feet wide from the edge of the sidewalk to the edge of the sidewalk, and in order to provide an 18-foot path for emergency vehicles and with adequate width for two-way traffic, one side of the road must be considered a 7-foot parking lane, providing two 9-foot traffic lanes. The east side of the road will be signed for no parking, which is the section that's in Ward 8, and that's the side that has the fire hydrants, which will allow for more parking on the west side. And the only thing that is not on here is what date that's going to be effective. Do we know?
I'm not sure. I think they've been ticketing, but similar to what happened in Ward 6, we probably need to allow some leeway with warnings given first, since they've been used to parking there for decades. And to change it all at once, I think it's we've gotten several calls on it. I don't know if the aldermen have been getting calls, but I think that we'd have to follow a similar approach than what we did with Ward 6.
Well, and I appreciate the Public Works Department reaching out to the residents and sending each one a letter and informing them what's going on, so it's not a big surprise.
Exactly.
Mayor, we have that same situation on Gregory Court within the 1900 block. I've had a resident that's been living there 25 years, and he got a ticket 2 weeks ago because he had one wheel on the sidewalk.
So I guess we need to take a look at what we should have I can't remember what we did in Ward 6. Was it 3 weeks, or do you remember what
We
the
agreed to stop
compromise
ticketing
was?
them and let them, there was a parkway that they could park on, so there was some grass that they could park on.
We have no right of way. It just goes right into the curb to the sidewalk.
Fire chief.
There's variables in some of those situations. Just like Alderman was talking about, some of them have curb and gutter together. We've had actually at Twin Lakes, we had an issue out there. So I know that we try to work with people. We try to work with the alderman to make sure that we try to, if there is a situation, ease into it. Most of the times, if they've been parking that way for a long time, the neighbors kind of work together and it's not an issue. But it was becoming an issue, I know, in Illinois. And of course, we had the issue in Ward 6. But it was a little bit, some variables in some of those. We can't have people completely blocking an actual sidewalk as an issue. And we try to work with people. But some places where there's no sidewalk, it's different. But.
And I lived over there for 8 years, and if you literally do have 2 cars parked legally, there is only room for 1 car to go down. And I know we actually had issues with snow plows, garbage trucks, and and at one point in time we did have a fire engine that couldn't get through the street. And I remember them going up and making the person move their car so they could get the fire truck through.
Did you park on the sidewalk?
No, I stayed in the driveway.
No, we've talked about designating some of those because you're exactly right. Snowplows can't get through there during the wintertime. So, but in some of those areas, we haven't actually plowed snow over there in 2 years.
But yeah,
so
luckily. When did the letters go out?
Probably about a week ago. We've been getting calls on it. I don't think we put an exact date. Generally, we would put those out. Actually went door to door, put them out on the doors, and we would give usually some time before we actually made the change. So
Might want to
we're really talking a couple of weeks.
Cars that are parked on the street, too.
Yeah, I think people have been getting tickets. That's what we're getting calls on, so we'll have to come up with the policy with regards to that, I would think.
And then my last item is not a pleasant item to bring up, and I don't know what the fire chief or the police chief can tell us, but I've been contacted by a number of people, either through social media or through people that see me when I'm walking downtown on break or lunch, about the search and rescue for the kayaker. I told them that, there's things that the department obviously can and can't say, but if you could just address the public on that briefly.
Yeah, as you're probably well aware, it started about Saturday night. We got called about 8:30 for a missing kayaker in the water. We had pretty good location, pretty good eyewitness accounts. It's a process. You search that area. We started there. We have a sonar now, which is kind of a game changer in the search and rescue business. It's gives you about a 25-foot span, and you can see pretty clearly all the way to the bottom. The problem is there's underground, they call them eddies, and then there's also trees, things like that, debris, and that casts shadows, makes it very difficult. I met with the father, the family, on Sunday morning, kept him informed, let him know what was going on. Obviously sympathetic to his frustration and his anxiety. Met with him again today, and pretty much at this point the Sangamon County Rescue Squad is leading. We're in the more of an assist mode at this time. They've got, they were out there today from every day. They've been out there from pretty much 8 o'clock in the morning until they've been shutting down about 4 p.m.
And I believe that at this point, the kayak was recovered, but I don't know that, and I don't even know if you guys can say this, but I don't think any personal items have been found.
Yeah, I don't really have any indication that there was anything personal found. Obviously, this is it's government cooperation at its best. You've got Sangamon County Rescue Squad, Springfield Police, Springfield Fire, DNR, State Police flying overhead with a infrared looking in the woods, because there was some hope that maybe he had self-evacuated. The water was very cold, so obviously hypothermia was an issue, and the State Police didn't see anything, and they were out there again the next day doing the same thing. Yeah, it's unfortunate. We're kind of in the hoping mode now, as that something breaks loose. The divers, not divers, but the guys on the boat are pulling apart some debris in some pockets, hoping that we can break something loose, maybe get a better picture underneath there.
Who's running your side scan sonar?
I'm sorry?
Who's running the sonar for you? Is it DNR?
We've got, I'd have to look it up to tell you an exact answer. I think
DNR, though?
Oh, no, we're doing that, and DNR's got a sonar, we've got a sonar, and Sangamon County Rescue Squad has a sonar. And basically what we do, we kind of do it the same way we search a building, is you check each other's work. So we'll have one group searching an area, and then they move along, and then another group will search. There is an area that we're concentrating on, but again, it's frustrating because the river isn't causing, it's not causing a lot of problems. It's up a little bit, but it's not horribly turbulent. And so
it's a tough area down there.
It is. Yeah, it's a real tough area.
So anyway, I had a number of people who reached out who know the missing man personally.
Sure. He had a lot of friends and family that were in the area yesterday, especially. Obviously, our initial efforts, we asked them to stay off of the water because that actually hampers. The more boats you get out there, the more it stirs. It stirs up what we're trying to see through with that sonar. So that was frustrating for them, but we explained everything. We met with them. They knew where we stood.
All right. Well, thank you. And like I said, this is I just wanted to make sure the public was aware. It seemed like a number of people were asking questions, and I feel horrible for the family, and I just really hope that we can.
Yeah, we do too. I agree.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Chief. Anybody else with Alderwoman DeCenzo?
At the next Committee of the Whole meeting, I will be the chairwoman, and I was hoping that maybe we could get advance notice of presentations so they could make it onto the agenda. It's more helpful for the public. They can be here if they want to see something. The presentation given tonight was fantastic, and it's no advance notice is ever given, so I'm just making that request. And also, happy one-year anniversary to me of sitting on the council. And I want to thank you all.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your patience and your constructive criticisms and all the help that you have given me over the past year.
Do you require presents?
No, I should be giving you all presents.
I just wanted to wish Johnny a happy 50th wedding anniversary. Here in Sandy.
More than John, how about Sandy?
Actually, you ought to wish it to my wife.
Okay, Sandy, happy anniversary, Sandy.
7 great years, huh, John?
7 great years.
All right. But I did that on purpose because our anniversary is coming up Saturday, so I wanted to take this time to wish my wife for putting up with me for 34 years.
Come on. Now, she is
How
a
many
saint.
years?
34.
That is, yes. She's saying.
Just 34.
So you just stole John's thunder. Oh, my gosh.
All right. Anybody else, new business? Nope. Okay. Oh, no, well, citizens requesting, no one signed up? Nope. Okay. Executive session? Nope. I think we're good. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Good. What else the media needs to know when we got a presentation?
It's his anniversary too. 31 years today.
Yeah, we're just 20-something.
That's the reason why I was very careful. I phrased it. Yeah.
It's just people aren't getting.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I was really careful.
Yeah.